Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast that we bring you each and every day, practically at this stage, on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button to get the latest content updates. And joining me today for a very special episode where we're going to be looking back at Premiership legends. Alex Byrne. How are you, Alex?
Good, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm quite excited for this topic that I'm really, and a man that I'm really excited to discuss with you.
And the other man that's joining me, of course, the podfather of the Dynamo Podcast Network, Mr. Ian Kelly. How are you, Ian?
Excited to be on here as well. It's good to have it's good to be on a show where I finally have two Chelsea fans and no one else other than a host wearing a Liverpool jersey, but that's all right.
Well, I'm sure our viewers can gather looking at the jerseys. Forget about my shirt. I wore it out of respect because this man broke my heart so many times. Out of respect. I did wear the blue headphones, though. I didn't have a blue shirt, obviously being a Liverpool fan. This is we're going to kick off. This is a Premiership Legends series that we're going to look at, and it was triggered basically by me the other day, where a certain journalist from a certain paper that would never ever be mentioned on this show, no matter what, turned around and said that Sergio Aguero was the greatest foreign import into the Premiership. And that took me back a little bit. I started going through names in my head. And I mean, obviously, for any Manchester United fans out there, Peter Schmeichel jumps to mind. But I said, I'm going to kick off a Premiership Legend series, and I'm going to do 2 a month. And I thought there was no better place to start. I mean, everyone would expect you to start with Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard and Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira and all these guys. Alan Shearer, of course, and all. Yeah, but I said there's no better place to start than with Mr. Didier Drogba, who is an absolute legend of the game, who broke my heart on many occasions and has been described as the man that changed the view on strikers in the Premiership by going with one up top and absolutely acting as a battering ram against defences and destroying them. So we're going to take a look at his Chelsea career today, and as I said, I couldn't think of 2 better guys to come on the show, especially for an early morning kickoff for us. So where do we begin with this man's career? I mean, arrived into Chelsea from Marseille, 35 appearances for Marseille, 19 goals, obviously prolific in the league, but again, signing a man like this, always a risk. But this man, he was an absolute powerhouse. Alex, I'll start with you.
I thought about that this morning. Sorry, Alex, you can chime in. I wonder, Alex, at the time, before you kind of talk about how great he is, do you remember, like, the year before, obviously, when we had that just FIFA fucking overload where, you know, like, I mean, for me,
everyone.
Oh, like because we were linked with Christian Vieri, and I was like, oh, fuck. And then we got Crespo, and I was like, this is even better for me. Yeah. Crespo was probably my favourite number 9 on the planet at that time. And when Drogba came in that year with Mourinho, I was like, I love everything Mourinho's doing, but sending Crespo out on loan and buying this lad to replace Crespo, I'm not really happy with it. I just wanted to start that narrative off.
I was going to touch on that because, I mean, when he was signed, I think he was signed for 24 million, which at the time was a pretty fucking substantial amount of money. But I remember Mourinho, the conversation he apparently had with Abramovich, Roman was like, I'm not 100% sure about this guy, but Jose was like, no, look, just pay the money. Don't ask questions. Just get me this guy. And I always remember in the media were trying to have a go at Mourinho, going, "Oh, you've signed this guy from the French league for 24 million. I don't think it's a waste of money. He's 26. He's this and he's that." And Mourinho's famous quote about Drogba was, "Don't judge him now. Judge him when he leaves. Let's see what he does."
Yeah.
And if you remember, like, his first couple of seasons, he was, you know, that great striker up front. He scored 2 goals in the League Cup final that year against Liverpool at the time. And he was a powerhouse up front. But I think it was the 3rd season when he got, you know, we'll admit the first couple of seasons he was a bit
he wasn't prolific.
He was a bit theatrical. Yeah, he was a bit theatrical with his divers. And once he got that out of his game, the 06-07 season, man, like, I think he scored 33 goals that year. That
was the season, yeah. Because I think that first year he came in, everyone thought Kezman was the bargain. Because we got him for like 5 million, and Kezman had been like pumping 30 plus goals a year in the Dutch league, and everyone thought he's come from PSV. The last striker to come from PSV to the Premier League done pretty all right for himself. A certain Ruud van Nistelrooy. So I think people were like, "Whoa, this is pretty good business." But then obviously one bombed. But I think we did see early on there. That's a great point you made, Alex. We did see early on that Drogba starts scoring goals in big games, and like namely there's two teams in particular, and they both wear red and white, and it's Liverpool and Arsenal that in particular fucking probably couldn't stand the sight of the lad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially Arsenal. Like, he had a bloody vendetta. I think it was 12 goals in 12 games. Well, I mean, it goes to show, I think, how popular Drogba was and just how good of a guy he was. Because I was actually talking to a friend of mine last night who's an Arsenal fan, and I was on the podcast, and he said, man, he scored 12 goals in 12 games against us. I used to hate the sight of him, but my God, he goes, I still love the man. He goes, I thought he was a legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most neutral football fans would turn around and be a fan of Didier Drogba. He was an absolute powerhouse. I'd also mention that season where he scored the 33 goals was for our Irish viewers. He took the 11 jersey off Damien Duff, who moved out that season. Which was obviously a catalyst for a great season as well. You know what I mean?
Do you remember that famous? I mean, and they weren't just like let's look for anyone that wants to go, because he's had 2 seasons with Chelsea where they were super prolific.
Yes.
One where he won the Golden. I think he won the Golden Boot twice, didn't he? He won it that year. And
I think.
Then the year with Ancelotti as well.
Yes. He won it. He scored 37 goals in Ancelotti that season. Yeah. That was when he got the hat trick on the last day to win it. Yeah,
when he had the hissy fit because he couldn't take the penalty. But I just wanted to kind of add to that. Like, I mean, it's just by the same token. I mean, I'm a Chelsea man, but I have all the respect in the world for like a Dennis Bergkamp and a Thierry Henry. Do you know what I mean? Even though I fucking hated playing against him. Same with Fernando Torres. Like, I mean, that I wanted to punch the head off Fernando Torres when he played for Liverpool.
I wanted to punch the head off when he played for Chelsea.
Look at this little blonde highlighted bitch going scoring goals, trying to start on John Terry. The day he signed, I was like, fucking always loved Torres, me.
We should also mention he was the first Chelsea player since Kerry Dixon to score 30 plus goals in the league.
And that's what I was going to say, Noel. Do you remember that? I mean, the goal of the season that year for Drogba had to be the volley on the chest in the last minute against Everton, like from 40 yards out. I mean, literally, it was 2-2. I think Lampard scored a belter from like the most ridiculous angle in the game as well. And then Drogba. I mean, this is as you create the narrative, Noel. This is the measure of this man going forward from that season. That's really when he kicked on, and he was big game Drogba. You know what I mean? The African king was born.
He's one of those strikers that I always remember. Like you hear about a lot of prolific strikers out there, but you know they're always banging in 4 against Wrexham or 5 against Luton or whatever it is. You know, this man scored so many goals to get Chelsea over the line and win games and win trophies. He was always there in around the winning goals, which were so important. You know what I mean?
And if you look at that record in finals too, I mean, 9 goals in 9 different finals. Like, I mean, I know as you touched on there, Reen, he only had 2 prolific seasons where he scored 20 plus goals, up to 30 goals a season, 30 plus goals a season. But if you look at our finals or against the big teams, if we played against, an Arsenal, played against a Liverpool, we were playing against these decisive teams. He was always a man that scored. And even that season you touched on, his prolific season, that's when he really arrived too. He had that goal, as you said, against Everton, the volley against Liverpool on his left foot. He had, what was the other one? He had the goal against Barcelona where he turned on the edge of the box and bared the top corner in the group stage. But that season as well, we won the Carling Cup and we won the FA Cup. 2 goals in the Carling Cup final to win 2-1 and the goal in the cup final to win 1-0. So that's when you sat there and go, okay, he's the man for this occasion. He's the man who's going to win us these trophies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you always felt when he took to the pitch that he, like, you know, he fed off it and he embraced it and he wanted it so much. You know what I mean? Like it's weird when you look back on some of those goals he scored now because VAR might rule them out for like grieveless bodily harm on defenders or something like that.
Jamie Carragher, didn't Jamie Carragher say that he was the hardest defender he's ever played against? You remember that famous one where Carragher said, "I'm going to actually do him here," and he ran. He had a full fucking pelt and he ran into the back of Drogba to knock him over and Carragher fell on his own arse.
And there was that Carragher's admitted he had a blow with Benitez. They were playing Chelsea and Rafa was basically saying, you're not doing a good enough job on Drogba this. And the famous Carragher one is he said to him, "Boss, he's bigger than me, he's faster than me, he's more skillful than me, he can score from 40 yards and he's stronger than anyone on the team. What do you want me to do?"
yeah. I loved the Carragher Drogba battles, I have to say, and it's kind of where when I look back on it now, I have so much respect for Carragher because he's quite an honest guy too when he talks about it. You know what I mean? Because Carragher does give that impression of being the hard man, but he's also honest. You know what I mean? He's like, I can't do anything against this fucking behemoth, because when you look at Drogba, like. It wasn't like he was Hulk. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't like big mad traps or fucking, but he was cut like a middleweight boxer or something. That's what he was cut like. And his strength in his core was just ridiculous. And as Niall I think Niall or you, Alex, alluded to, his first 2 seasons where, the Mourinho tactics of diving and stuff like that, he kind of gradually got that out of his game. And I think that particular year, I think Ancelotti was the guy that really cut that out. And, funny enough, an Italian cutting out diving.
But, I think as well we did well to keep him, because when Mourinho was sacked in 2007, the big talk, there was all the players were very upset, but the big talk was that Drogba was going to leave. Every kind of summer, it was, okay, this is when Drogba was going to leave. He's going to go here. He's going to go
City wanted him, yes.
Yeah, he's going to go to Inter to beat Mourinho. He's going to go to Madrid to beat Mourinho. But no, he always stuck with us. He stuck with us for 8 years. And, I was kind of saying to people as well, I'm sure you agree, and we talk about these players that play for a club, like I got Lampard in there in the poster behind me. We talk about Lampard, we say, what a player, amazing player. We talk about Terry, exact same. We talk about Czech. Yeah. But when we talk about Drogba, there's this, I don't know, it's just kind of emotional. It's what a man, just what a man.
It's, one thing, and I'll pass it back to you, Noel, sorry, just one thing I wanted to say as well, in terms of his mental strength, when you think about it, is ridiculous, because think of the strikers that he had to overcome to always get his place back. Crespo, boom, sent him out on loan. Next year, Crespo comes back and they were able to work together. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then Shevchenko comes in. You think Shevchenko fucking literally, in the last 5 years, have probably been the superstar of European football. No, Drogba takes a spot back. Anelka comes in. They find a way to work together, which was a beautiful partnership, I have to say. But again, Drogba comes out on top. Torres comes in, Drogba out on top. He just, that mental strength, I think, as well, is something that people kind of overlook, I think, when they're talking about Drogba.
I think when you look at him, we always talk about Lampard and Terry and all being Chelsea boys. But he was kind of like the foreign version of a Chelsea boy in the team, wasn't he? He was that he fitted in with the band, if you like, or the clique, if you like. His performance was unbelievable. He was also the first Chelsea player since Gianluca Vialli to score a hat-trick in Europe, which is absolutely huge. 2007, he was named Ivorian Player of the Year, had an outstanding international career with the Ivory Coast, 105 games, 65 goals.
Good Jesus.
I have to say, I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I just wanted to show this on the thing. World Cup in 2010 in South Africa. Ireland weren't there, so it was a neat team to support. Look at that. World Cup 2010. They were my team. I remember when Drogba scored against Brazil. I was celebrating so much.
It was Ireland. It was Ireland in reverse as well.
Exactly.
We know Ireland has a big kind of African culture now as well. So I remember that year as well. There was a lot of either Arsenal fans, cheering Ghana and stuff like that. But I remember all the Chelsea boys. I was like, well, it's Ireland in reverse anyway, the Ivory Coast.
It's mad, isn't it? And the jersey ain't too dissimilar from a Brazilian jersey anyway.
No.
Yeah, so then we look at the, he was named in the PFA Premier League Team of the Year and only missed out on the Player of the Year award to Cristiano Ronaldo, which is, pretty decent.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
What else did we look at here now? December 2007, he was voted fourth in the FIFA World Player of the Year, and he was only behind, here's some names here. This is the company he was keeping: Kaká, Lionel Messi, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And I mean, if you're coming forward to any of those three, I mean, you kind of feel like a winner, don't you?
Do you remember that battle, that rivalry Chelsea had with Barcelona as well?
Yeah.
And I remember Ronaldinho and Messi had both, for every year in their Team of the Year, always had Drogba as their striker. What does that tell you? Do you know what I mean?
Absolute powerhouse. So then we move on. Let's talk about the first Champions League final, which is always the tougher one to talk about.
Yeah.
I was reading an article there the other day, and I think the assistant coach at the time came out and said Drogba was actually the man who was supposed to take that fifth penalty.
Yes, he was.
And how different history could have been written, only for a moment of madness with Vidic, who basically annoyed every striker. What's your memories of that final? I mean, obviously, must have been massive disappointment.
Alex can go on this first while I gather my thoughts.
I think that I will say how I used to feel compared to how I feel now. I remember at the time, and man, I'm sure you were the same, and I was devastated. I'm sure you probably were as well, Nelson. United win the Champions League. I was absolutely devastated. But I suppose it wasn't just the way we lost. There was always this kind of like old adage of, Chelsea have come closer than any team to win the Champions League without winning it. We'd been knocked out of 3 semi-finals by this stage. We'd finally made the final. We'd basically gotten 1 penalty away from winning the Champions League, and unfortunately JT at the post. And you're kind of sitting going, how much closer can a team get to actually winning it without winning it? But I'm a firm believer in that. The 2004 semi-final against Monaco, 2005 semi-final against Liverpool, 2005, 2007 against Liverpool, 2008 final against United, 2009 semi against Barcelona. Every single one of those games made winning it in 2012 that much better. If we because there was always a big thing of Chelsea haven't won the Champions League. There was a joke of we've gotten so close and can't do it. It was amazing. It would have been amazing anyway. But I think without all of that backstory, it wouldn't have felt as good. Because people talk about Champions League wins and Champions League journeys. They go, they went through this. This was an 8-year in the making win in 2012. And I think 2008 was a big part of that. So as much as it used to break my heart at the time, I look at it and I go, you know what? It sucked at the time, but it made, and I'll move out of the way, it made this so much better.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that other than I completely agree. And the narrative, I mean, it was literally, you could make a movie out of that because everyone had thought that ship had sailed, that team that Mourinho had built were on their last legs. Drogba was near the end. He was he was moving club after that. It was kind of like, shit, this ship has sailed for this. This is as they say in ice hockey, this is a rebuild now. You know what I mean? And we're going back to basics. And Torres hopefully will be the guy to kind of lead the mantle, which he did, in fairness, the next season, especially in Europe. But I think, I'm sure we'll talk about Torres, Noel as Premier League legend as well. I just think he gets an unfair shout when it comes to his Chelsea career. I think he's done quite a lot. But Drogba, and here's something, I'm wearing this, right? The fact that Di Matteo was the man in charge of that. One of my favorite moments was Di Matteo shouting at Abramovich, I want it, and Abramovich just going, to see Di Matteo come in there and rally the troops, one of the first foreign players to come in, very underrated player too, and not really remembered, for everything he done. What a fucking player. To come in and to win that cup. I mean, that narrative for me is just, you couldn't write that. If you told me Chelsea would never win the Champions League again, but that would be the moment, and that's how the story would go, I'm good with that.
I always remember that one as well, because the team had him and they were throwing him up in the air, and Di Matteo wasn't a big lad. And I always remember, when you see teams throwing their managers up in the air, it's kind of slight, But I remember they were throwing Di Matteo up in the air, and he was catching so much air. He was going way up and way back down. Yeah. And I just remember it was unbelievable. It was. He also passed Peter Osgood's record in European football in terms of scoring, this is a man now who's continually surpassing, equaling, or breaking records all the time and scoring such important goals. He was also the first man to be sent off in the Champions League final since Jens Lehmann, and he was the first ever player sent off for violent conduct, if that's what you want to call it. This is what they call it, Then we move on.
The fucking disgrace.
It was. I remember that, and it was. I still remember that final as well. I always joke, we played so well in that final. It was the final that we were on the back foot for 120 minutes that we won. But in 2008, I thought we played so well at the time. But just to touch on the Champions League, I know you guys were talking about the team Mourinho built. Fun fact, that 2012 Champions League final was actually the last time that Cech, Terry, Drogba and Lampard were all at Chelsea together. Yeah,
because Drogba came back and Terry and Lampard had gone.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the last time.
Yeah, so then we started out, we went to the 08-09 season, and he picked up a few injuries and suspensions, so he sort of kind of lost his place in the team. Scolari was the manager at the time, favourite Nicolas Anelka. Again, Nicolas Anelka, another beast of a striker.
Yeah.
And that was his best. I mean, Nicolas Anelka, I'm sure you'll talk about him at some point on this series, enjoyed his best career at Chelsea, realistically, because it's the longest team he stayed at, 4 years, and incredible season. Sorry, just
no problem at all. Then Gus Hiddink comes in again and obviously regains his place.
Uncle Gus
scores
Legend.
4 in 5 games. And then we move on to Carlo Ancelotti comes in. So we're seeing the Chelsea manager merry-go-round going. And he signs a new contract with Carlo Ancelotti. Scored his 100th goal for Chelsea in a 3-1 defeat to Wigan. Which might have taken a little bit of the shine off it, but again,
yeah
100 goals, like 100
Yeah.
goals, you know. Helped Chelsea to a Premier League title and scored a hat-trick in an 8-0 win over Wigan. So that made up for the original 3-1 defeat.
I was going to say, yeah.
That was his 3rd league medal.
Yeah.
And again, in doing so as well, he also took the golden boot off Mr. You-know-who, Wayne Rooney, which I'm sure made it so much more sweeter.
I fucking did. I remember where I was that day.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So let's move on. We've indulged a little bit in the final that you lost. Let's indulge in 2012. Ian,
Is that still the record as well? That season for the most amount of goals scored in the Premier League, or did City break that eventually, or is it?
Yeah,
level?
City eventually broke it, but at that point it was the most goals, and also that was the season as well where he scored in his 3rd FA Cup final when we beat Portsmouth 1-0 because he'd scored. But
that was also the season, like a time when defenders could actually defend. Let's not forget that. I mean, you had Liverpool there with obviously Liverpool, well, until last year had the best defender in the world, but you know, they actually had proper defenses. Do you know what I mean? Like these Wigan teams could just sit and park the bus. West Ham's could park the bus. Nowadays, it's almost like fucking basketball in some ways. Like, sorry, Noel, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So let's indulge now in 2012. Let's talk about that Champions League final. The great Bayern Munich, of course.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Ian, talk to me about it. That day, the final.
I'll tell you, a lot of things happened that day. In that 90 minutes, my sister came out of it with a burst eardrum from my voice. I know I come across nice and calm on these podcasts, you know, but we were planning to go out and celebrate. We were planning to go out for a drink that night, actually, purely, and I think I was actually meeting up with Coach Paul Tracy, actually. And I remember my brother going, if Chelsea lose this, there's no way I'm going out with him, because he's definitely going to go down and riot. Like literally, I swear to God, and I'm sure Alex can take on from me here after this, but like every emotion that you can imagine, from waking up that day to wondering what the team sheet will be, to hearing Bosingwa is going to possibly play fucking centre back. Ryan Bertrand, the fucking rookie, is going to play on the left wing. Kalu is going to have to start. And you're just like a mix of emotions where you can't actually take a step back and go, right, how do we actually get through this? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, like it's one of those weird days, man. Like I know you say you've got so many days, but we're coming up to, what is it now? 9 years ago nearly. But that day I can remember just everything, you know, what I did, what I wore, who I spoke to. And same with yourself. Like, I mean, I remember just watching the game, and it wasn't like I was watching a football match. It wasn't like, okay, I was like, no, I was watching, like, we have to win this. I was like, there's no, like, my mind, I was like, the world doesn't continue if we don't win this.
Yeah.
This is, we have to, like, I don't know how to describe it apart from, you know, even the way we got there, like the 8 years, but, you know, the comeback against Napoli, overcoming Barcelona in the semi-final. I was like, you know, this is it. This is when we win. And it was, I don't know, I just went in and I was like, I've no doubt that we're going to win. I was like, we have to do this, and we're going to do it, because there's no way we don't win this. And I just remember when we won, man. Like, I've celebrated, like, games, I've shared the screen, but I fucking lost it when he scored that penalty. It was almost like a state of shock as well, because, you know, you're thinking, Chelsea won, but you're just like, oh my God, Chelsea won the Champions League. Like, this thing that we could never do, this thing that was never able to happen.
It didn't feel real until I saw the cup. I swear to God. Like, do you guys do this, you know, when it's your team and you do pussy out and you're like, oh, and you're kind of almost trying to take a sneak through your fingers, like, but as soon as I was like, I'm not going to look, I just want to hear everyone celebrate or else go fuck. But I remember something in my head just went, oh, take your hands away. And as soon as I saw Drogba, as soon as it went that way, I was like, it's him. It's
Yeah.
fucking in, like.
Yeah, and even the commentators, you heard them going, this is meant to happen. This is exactly what needs to happen. And the one for me with that was when Robin got the penalty in injury time, and I was like, no, I can't watch, but I can't have like the fingers open like that. As soon as Czech saved the penalty in injury time, and that's a man that deserves just as much credit as Drogba.
Look at me tearing up like a pussy, remembering it. Like it's actually mad. It's actually mad how much emotion that day brings back. Yeah,
like that's what I said to like a couple of Chelsea fans and I mates. Like I says, I'm going to talk about Drogba today. I'm going to get so emotional. That's what I'm talking about. We can talk about our players, but when it comes to Drogba, especially for that night, it was just wow. And I just it felt so right. The fact it was on penalties. I always remember the line that did it for me. I remember I was watching the shootout and it was Schweinsteiger hit the post with his penalty. And I was about to go up and celebrate. And then it was Martin Tyler. He goes, Chelsea are one penalty away, but that's what they were in Moscow. And I was just like, oh my God.
Typical Martin Tyler.
Yeah, but I was just sitting there like, oh my God. I was like, but I was just sitting there and like, I kind of just, that's when it really hit me because I was like, oh, we're going to win. But then it hit me like, hang on, this is the same final as 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened, a goal down to equalize, bring it to penalties. And, this is what should have happened 4 years ago. This is Drogba stepping up. And, oh man, I don't know. Just as soon as he did it, it was just, everything was just right with the bloody world.
Can I say one thing? Can I just say one thing as well about how important it was for our club? Because if you remember, Niall, back early in Dynamo's dozen, I had Paul Canaville, the first black player to ever play for Chelsea, who is getting better now. So
good.
Thoughts and prayers with Canaville and his family. Canners, as they call him. But like the man that suffered the most hideous and fucking ridiculous racial abuse that you can imagine back in the day, playing for the club that he fucking loves and supported. And we remember Desailly getting fucking stupid monkey chants and all that, and he's pointing at the badge, wearing this particular jersey, actually.
Yeah.
Going, I'm playing for fucking you. And to see a full circle that Chelsea just get rid of the fucking redneck white supremacy fucking element out of the club completely.
Yeah.
And the hero of Chelsea Football Club that had this stigma of racism is now Didier Drogba, the African king. I just thought I'd throw that in there. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and it was just like, I mean, I again, Martin Tyler's commentary, he says, he's immortal at Chelsea. Like, as soon as that happened, you were like, this is like, my God, I remember saying, build the statue tomorrow. Start building the statue tomorrow now.
Oh.
Because it was just, again, like, it's so weird looking back 9 years later because it was this thing of, as a Chelsea fan, I was like, especially after the United final, and then after Barcelona the next year with Iniesta's goal in the 93rd minute, which, by the way, that is the biggest robbery you'll ever see in football, that game.
Yep.
I was just confined to the fact that I was like, we can't win this. But then when we got there in 2012, as soon as we knocked out Benfica and got Barca, so I think that we're going to get this. And everybody talks about Torres' goal in the second leg, and quite right, but Drogba scored the winner in the first. Yeah, Raul Morelos, but Drogba scored the winner against Barca in the first leg at the Bridge. Remember that night, 1-0?
Yeah. Morelos was a nice gift from Liverpool that year, actually. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to bring you on a bit of an emotional roller coaster, really, which is kind of beat me to it. Really, I was sort of thinking, 87 minute, you guys must be slumped in the couch thinking this is.
Yeah.
This is the moment where my family are saying I'm not going out with him.
88 minute corner with Juan Mata, swings in the corner. Must have been like slow motion for you guys.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hits the back of the net, back in it,
yeah.
and then riding the roller coaster of emotion all the way to penalties, and surely the John Terry slip and everything else must be still in the mind, still in the background there, and going, listen, we have to do it at least for John Terry, like.
That's was my reaction. Like when it went to penalties, I was like, I started freaking out. I was like, we cannot lose on penalties again. I was like, we cannot lose on penalties again. And it was just, man, like, I mean, that equalizer again, I just remember the commentary, like, it's through Martin Tyler, and it was correct what he said. He said, Chelsea they just won't give up in this Champions League. They just refuse. They're like, no.
Neville blew his load again.
He did indeed. Oh! But see, that's
by the way, shout out to Torres, by the way.
Yes. He did indeed. And that was Martin Tyler as well. He goes, X amount of minutes they've been on the pitch together, Drogba and Torres, and they don't score. 5 minutes later, bang. But it was such one because, you've had teams win the Champions League. You've had the great Real winning 3 in a row. You've had Barcelona winning the Champions League. You've had Liverpool, the Italian side. You've had, exactly, Liverpool. But that was the one time I just saw a Champions League team win. We have to admit, we were not the best team in that last 4, but I've just never seen a team that just was like, no, we are not going to lose. There's no team that's going to beat us. We might have been the best team, but you are not going to beat us.
There's that night as well. Actually, was the night where my bad blood with Liverpool actually came to a halt. Because, like I mentioned, I was out with Paul Tracy afterwards, and we were drinking away. And everyone who knows Paul Tracy knows that boy can drink. And I have to say, all the Liverpool fans, they were and actually Phil Boyd. Shout out to Phil Boyd as well. He was a City fan there, and it was like all the teams other than Man United, say, Liverpool, City, were actually so delighted for Chelsea. It was just one of those things, you know. And I think, Noel, you know, you can probably speak on that better than we can. Was that just because that you had grown up, or you had been around that particular team and said they deserve it, or what was it?
That would have been part of it, but I mean, at that time, if you remember, like the success of Chelsea and all, I mean, you guys were really the benchmark. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, apart from, you know, I mean, nearly all the league, you know, has disdain for Man United in the way, because Man United tend not to, you know, react that way in reverse. You know what I mean? So that's why they don't get it back. But I mean, I would always want a team from the Premiership to do well. With the exception of United, because it does never recourse.
Same.
So that's the only reason. It's just there's never recourse. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'd also mentioned that headed goal that he scored was his 9th in 9 cup finals.
Oof.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's an amazing record when you think about it. Like, that's the measure of the man.
He gave a penalty away then in extra time.
I remember. I just sank back into my seat. But if I could just go to your point there, though, a mate of mine, and we could tie back into this, because a good friend of mine, a guy called Paul, I talked to him about that final, and he says, you know, he basically said for that final was more or less a Chelsea. He's a Liverpool fan, but he said for that final, he was a Chelsea fan. He said when Chelsea won, he reacted like a Chelsea fan. And I said the reason wasn't because, you know, he wanted the team to do well. The main reason, he always says to me, that he wanted Chelsea to win the final and react the way it is because he wanted Drogba to win the Champions League. He says, I want him to win.
Yeah.
So then we go to November. In November 2012, there was a poll of 20,000 Chelsea fans. And I'm only going to assume that all 20,000 voted the same way. But Didier Drogba was voted the greatest ever Chelsea player.
Yeah, I have that magazine still. Yeah.
So, I mean, then he goes out then and he, like, this is where we say Mourinho moves on, and I heard an interview with Didier Drogba where he says that he was in tears when he found out that Jose Mourinho was leaving. He had such bond with Jose Mourinho. Yeah. And
so was I.
But it was just, you know what I mean? You know, it was nearly, sometimes I looked at it at times when you seen the two of them interact, and it was nearly like that father and son relationship.
Yeah.
You know, like Mourinho did so much for his career, and he did so much for Mourinho's career as well. Yeah. You know? So 2014, let's tell apart to that. He had left and then he comes back. Yeah. The prodigal son returns, and it starts off with Jersey Gate, where I think he had 3 different jerseys in the space of a few weeks. What was it? He took over. What did it start out with? No less from Mo Salah.
Yeah, Salah was number 15, and then Salah switched to number 17. So Drogba would get his own number 15 back. But Oscar, who was number 11, said, well, you know what, I'm going to take number 8 that's been vacated by Lampard. So Drogba took 11, which left Salah standing there like, right, I'm not sticking around here.
I'm going to Fiorentina.
I'll win a Premier League with a different team.
And thank God he did.
well, we did mention that Liverpool gave us 2 gifts in Torres, although a very expensive gift in Torres, and then you know, although they gave us the gift of Ben Oyun, which we won't speak about. But Raul Meireles, that one season he was at Chelsea, I thought he should have been kept. I know it's off topic, but no, it's what that Drogba return for me. It was kind of like, I was delighted to see him back, but at the same time I was like, you know, you had the perfect ending. But then, I mean, he came on and he scored a goal against Man United, like, you know, another header. And I was like, but you know what? Everything's right with the world again. So if that's the only goal he scores this season, that's good enough for me.
And he also picked up a goal against Schalke as well.
Yeah, and he scored against Spurs.
Yeah.
And he also, when we were going for the title, I remember there was a game against Leicester where it was toward the back end of the season. We were 1-0 down at half time, and Drogba scored the equaliser in that game to get us on our way to pick up the 3 points to push to the title. So, people say we brought him back, and we brought him back. It was a thing. It was just a sentiment thing. No, he played well that season. He got a few good goals again, as you said, a great goal against United. I remember that game. They equalised in the 96th minute and acted like they'd won the bloody league. But,
It was,
and like he just and I think it was his personality too, because a lot of players say, if you look at our title celebrations that season, everybody wanted to be beside Drogba. Everybody had their arm around him. They were hugging him. He had the pictures. Remember, he was sitting in front of the band and they put the crown on his head as well.
Yeah, I remember. That's an image I have trapped in time. Like, you know what I mean? Come back
and you talk about the perfect send-off as well. For me, Drogba at Chelsea had 2 perfect send-offs. He had the first one in the Champions League final, scored the winning penalty. Absolute hero, but his last game in the Premier League for us in 2015, he gets carried off the pitch by all the players to applaud. And I was like, if ever a man deserved an ending like that, it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to touch on as well, the Schalke goal that he scored was his 50th goal in European football. 50 goals in European football.
That's big. That is big.
And you can imagine the level of European football he was playing at, you know what I mean? He scored 50 goals.
Yeah, Man United fans still try and be salty and say that he wasn't prolific. Okay.
Yeah. Well, sure. Look, the salt runs deep in their veins, you know.
Yeah, if I could point out again as well, I've seen that argument too, where people go, Darren Bent scored more Premier League goals than Drogba. I'm like, yeah, but how many goals did Darren Bent score in the Champions League final? How many cups did he win for his teams? He had 2 prolific seasons, Drogba, and there were some seasons where he didn't score as many as some other world-class strikers, but look at Thierry Henry, never scored in the cup final.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was saying earlier in the episode. I mean, how many goals did Darren Bent score that led to him picking up a medal?
Mm-hmm.
That's the.
Listen, Kevin Phillips scored 35 goals one year with Sunderland, like 2 or 3 years in a row with Sunderland. Like, how is Kevin Phillips remembered? No disrespect to Kevin Phillips, but who are you going to have in your team?
Well, Kevin Phillips is remembered as the man that Niall Quinn made. I'm just going to pop that in there with the Irish connection again.
Other than his kids, it's the only thing that Niall Quinn made. I just want to say that I'm on Team Keno. Yeah. Go on, Keno. me and Keno have made up since the last time I was having a rant about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, favorite goal from the man and favorite moment.
Well, it's got to be 2-1. Favorite goal in the moment has to be the Champions League final 2012. I mean, there's so many great moments with it, but that for me is just, I don't see anything ever topping that as a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Well, I mean, lads, this has been absolutely brilliant. It's been, we couldn't kick off a better Premiership Legends series than with you two guys and talking about Didier Drogba. I kept it a secret from Ian yesterday, and then I hit him up and I said, we're doing a Premiership series. And I said, and he was saying, so who are you doing? And I said, well, you wouldn't believe it, I'm going to be doing Didier Drogba. And I don't think he expected me to say that. But absolutely fabulous.
You messaged myself out of the blue yesterday as well, going, hey, I'm doing a Premier League podcast. You want to talk about Drogba? I was like, just name the time and I'll be there.
Same with me, man. I was like, on my day off, I was like, it's 9:30. That's all right. Yeah, I'll give it an hour. All right. Yeah, that's grand. I was just waiting for that Zoom link.
As always, head over to YouTube and smash that subscribe and bell notification button. As always, support Irish podcasting. You will also find us on Anchor, Spotify, and Podbean if you prefer the audio versions. Lads, it's been wonderful having you on, and no doubt we will touch again because there's plenty of Chelsea Premiership legends still to come. So from me till next time, thank you.